Hello, and welcome to Waiting for Game, a podcast presented to you by Melee Stats. I'm Edwin Budding, author of the Book of Melee and editor-in-chief of the Melee Stats website. As if you noticed, my usual partner and co-host Gimme That Wheat is on vacation, so he will not be joining us live, but we have a lot to cover from last weekend and a really exciting further weekend with Melee that's coming up. So first, I want to introduce you to the first of our two guests this week. Making his first ever appearance on the show, fresh off top 16 at GOML, is a very special player. You know him, you love him. Ben, how's it going, man? What have you
It's
been
going
up
good. Thank you for having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I mean, you've been following our show for a while. You've been following our work as a whole in Melee Stats. Obviously, you just came back from GOML. What have you been doing this week, kind of in between majors?
Slept all day on Monday because I did not go to bed. I had a 6:30 flight a.m. Did not sleep anything. Monday, got home, slept 10 hours, and got up for work today and did homework. I have 2 days to cram a lot of stuff to get ready for another major double down. We're doing it though.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy how that this is all just happening now, right? Like we were in such a stretch where we were waiting months between tournaments that like we cared about, and now it's like every
Now it's
single
crazy.
week.
It's yeah. And I especially structured my travel plans to really, cram everything into July. I'm going to a big tournament every single weekend. Very excited for it. It'll give me a very accurate idea of where I'm at, and it'll be really exciting. So it's just the first of many.
You know, Ben, I'm sure you appreciate the amount of tournaments that are going on. I appreciate it. The whole community, I think, appreciates it to an extent. But I don't think there's a single person who loves following tournaments and loves jotting down results quite as much as the other guest on the show. This is not technically his first overall appearance, but I would consider it his first official appearance on Waiting for Game. SF, our last night in Melee and When's Melee staff writer, is joining us tonight. SF, how you doing? What's on your mind? How do you feel?
I feel great. It's really hot and just muggy in LA, but I have to rest to get through that, and I'm just very excited for the coming weeks. I'm going to double down. I'm really excited for that, and just not excited for the weather there in Las Vegas. But I'm really excited for the melee that's going to happen.
It's going to be really hot, isn't it?
I'm not going to try and leave the venue or my hotel
Yeah.
as much as possible.
It's going to be so hot.
It's going to be brutal. It's going to be so brutal.
Yeah.
What was the weather in Toronto like, Ben?
It was great. A little hot some of the days, but no, I didn't have any issues with the weather really, which normally I do. So that was definitely nice. Yeah, I don't know. It was nice.
I mean, lest I be seen as the odd man.
It'll be really funny to the contrast in environment, going from gorgeous Toronto, like very classy and well structured, to the heart of American degeneracy.
Yeah, it's funny you mention that because again, so just so there's no confusion here, I too will also be going to double down this upcoming weekend. So all three of us are sure to be there. If you, the listener, or whoever is watching this, are going to double down, you can briefly say hi to us for about 5 seconds, or promise all three of us are friendly people. We don't bite, or at least I'm friendly for about 5 seconds. But yeah, I'm really excited to go there too. I do want to recap last weekend though. I think we got a lot to talk about. Just a lot of storylines of what's been going on, the results of the event. We know with the summer PGR season about to, close pretty soon. But there's a lot to talk about as far as implications of player rankings and what it means. But I think the first thing that I really want to hear from is, or the first person I really want to hear from on this is Ben, right? Because like unlike me and SF, you are actually at the event, and GOML, we're reaching a point where this is starting to become an annual major that maybe we don't look forward to in the same breath as like Genesis or the Big House. But I think this is a major that's really having its place as in the scene as these is one of the biggest summer majors to go to every year. I mean, we've seen it gradually grow over the years. We've seen top players consistently pick Toronto as one of their favorite spots. So, I mean, before we jump into the actual bracket itself, Ben, what did you like about your GOML experience? What do you think this tournament brings to the table?
Yeah, there was definitely stuff that I liked and didn't like. The international travel was definitely did not like that. Going there, it was all right, but coming back was definitely the most stressful airport experience ever. But firstly, the city was amazing. It's nice that everything's walkable. Um, it did kind of suck that apparently some cell phone providers, like the data just didn't work there, and I guess mine was one of them. So I couldn't do anything on my own, but there were just plenty of groups to go with people and just take charge. So that was nice. As far as the bracket format goes, just still getting used to no pools on Friday. I think that's a kind of a change that doesn't seem to be going away, which is nice. I'm okay with that. It's nice to just play all your sets and have all Friday to get ready for your sets and then play your sets on Saturday. So that part is nice. I'm down for that. I think it would be nice, and I haven't seen any majors experiment with this at all, to instead of only having top 8 on Sunday, maybe split it up just a tad bit more. So top 16, 24-ish on Sunday. I think Main Stage last year did that actually, and that was pretty entertaining. Seemed nice for a little bit larger group of players to get to play on Sunday. Yeah, I think that I would like to see that more at majors, but Friday was really nice. I think a lot of people were pointing out that doubles was ran a lot better, and I would agree. I think the decision to not stream any round 1 matches or even all of round 1 pools and even a lot of round 2 was just not put on stream, made it run really fast, and only viewers only see the more important matches, because personally I think that's part of why doubles is just not very entertaining, is because so much of it is just the early rounds that it's hard to get invested into. So I'm not sure how the viewership was on that, but from a competitor standpoint, I think the competitors like that a lot more. And then crew battles, I think, is one of the best Friday side event formats ever. I actually might go as far to say that was the best crew battle ever played in Melee.
Wow.
The USA versus the World one.
Yeah, so I think why don't we talk about this for a little bit? I think it's kind of crazy that the top 8 of GOML turned out as wild as it was, and I'm sure we'll get into that later. But yeah, you're absolutely right, Ben. That crew battle, I think that's got to be one for the record books, right? I think in terms of just the the actual flow of the crew battle, the momentum shift, some of the questionable decisions, I think on both ends. That I'm sure if we could dedicate a whole episode to that, right?
Yeah, but either way, I've never seen a 10 versus 10. That's a long crew battle. That's a long journey, and you had such a good mix of old school, new school players on both sides, foreign talent, U.S. talent, and it was just so exciting at how close it was the entire time. It felt like any time there was a big lead, it was just evaporated instantly by some big upset, with having it come down to IBW and Moki especially was quite poetic, because I feel like they are the champions of NA and Canada in some regards, and they're both extremely exciting sets, very even sets. They go back and forth. So having it come down to an even 4-4 between those two was definitely set the stage for a really awesome final game.
Ben, what was it like, kind of from your experience as a competitor there, being put in near the end and having a lot of pressure on you?
Yeah, I really did not expect them to save me for that long. Going in second to last is very anxiety inducing, but part of me was definitely just so focused on warming up that I didn't really even pay attention to the stocks. there were moments during when I was playing HUNGRYBOX and I was second to last. I'm like, oh my god, this is dead even. Like, I have to take this stock. I have to take this stock. If I don't, it's like that just ruins it for the whole team. This is a lot of pressure. I was so relieved that I at least got him to 1. Almost took him out. I was really bummed I couldn't take him out, but I would have felt bad if Cody lost the stock to HUNGRYBOX, and I was super relieved that he didn't. But yeah, no, going in second to last was like very unexpected. I think that comes back to like maybe one of the more questionable decisions was like putting Kalindi in for Swooper, because I think Kalindi is a very like low value pick to take out one of their highest values with HUNGRYBOX. They could have definitely saved Kalindi for HUNGRYBOX and saved Cody and everything like that. And they had me to throw in at Swooper, and we likely would have just traded stocks, or Sheik comes out on top of that, So I fully expected to go in versus like Swooper, or it was interesting that they sent Zuppy in versus, Jmook in versus Zuppy instead of saving Jmook for, I don't know, the better opponents. And it just so happened that Zuppy was playing super on point and took him out, which was
I was very
definitely
surprised
crazy.
by them sending Jamie.
Yeah.
I thought that almost threw the crew battle, honestly.
Yeah, logically, I think sending me in would have made more sense, but either way, like there were definitely just a couple decisions that made it closer than it needed to be, but like they also just played well to the point where they evened it up, which made it more entertaining.
So SF, you've a lot of tournament results, a good amount of Melee history. When this crew battle is looked at and when it's reviewed, in the history books or whatever, what decision do you think from the world's perspective is the one that changed the outcome of the crew battle? If you could change one thing that the world could have done, maybe it's a player choice, a counter pick, or whatever, what do they do differently? What's the one thing that you change that ends up with the world on top?
I think it's a very easy choice. And if you don't send in None versus Zane.
Yes, I was about to say the same thing.
It's so bad.
Tossing None like that was definitely huge, because you could have easily sent in None versus like me or Cody or like anyone like that. And I think HUNGRYBOX was the safest bet to like not get force stocked by Zane,
Mm-hmm.
So SF, I want to hear your rationale. Why do you think None was it? I have my reasons for why I think he's a bad choice, but I want to kind of hear you explain it.
I mean, so historically, None has always struggled with Zane. Even when Zane was like hard stop versus like Wizzy and S2J and Smuckers and Gatsu, he would just beat None all the time. It was never close. It would like be a game 4 maybe. And it has stayed the same during the pandemic. It stayed the same after the pandemic. And so when they sent in None on Stadium, this is just it felt like they were like throwing is like, yeah, it's Falcon versus Marth. It has to go well. And then, Zane did fair F smash 4 times into an edge guard that he would kill None off of, and that was it. And I think, I agree with Ben entirely.
Yeah, at the end of the day, if you're playing a fast faller, you have to execute well. And in crew battles, sometimes it's just really hard.
Yeah, I think that like it was particularly painful because the moment again, I think maybe their logic was it's Captain Falcon in a crew battle, right? Like maybe just
Falcon Marth, out of the choices that they still had left, it did make some sense. So I don't blame them, but like
in the context of None versus Zane specifically, it was one of those things that I immediately DM'd. It was either Chape or SF or both, but I immediately thought this is a bad idea. Like this, like they should send in HUNGRYBOX because at least on Dreamland,
Dreamland, right?
Yeah,
he'll at least probably bring him to like 1, if not just outright.
HUNGRYBOX did great versus Zane. HUNGRYBOX did super well. He took 2 stocks, I think, losing 1, and did his job.
Yeah,
he did super good.
Yeah, and then I think I came in next. Yeah, I did, and almost took 3. So that was definitely really nice. I saw the Twitch chat. Everyone was like super doubting, and understandably, but it just makes it even more better that I didn't, give in to what people expected.
Well, I think that look, there's so many things we could talk about with the crew
No,
battle.
yeah, I didn't mean to talk too much about the decisions of the crew battle, but I do think that it was reminiscent. It took all the best qualities of some of the best crew battles we've seen, and it's been a
Agreed.
long time since we've seen a really fun, cool land crew battle. It was reminiscent of like maybe like the Big House, like Europe versus SoCal, like some of those. But it took all the best aspects where instead of just getting to see your best Europeans and SoCal, you got to see your best foreign players from almost every single country represented. And you got a really nice mix of new and old school players in a super climactic, close, exciting, long crew battle. Like, to me, that was one of the best ones ever played.
I think Ben, it's because this happened last weekend. It's so hard to get the magic out of the. It's so hard to view it like objectively, but
Right.
I have thought about it a lot. You mentioned the Big House as an example to compare it with, and I think that's a very good example. But you know what, Ben? I'm going to go even further than that.
Even further back.
I think this is and was the most exciting crew battle at this level of play since the first Genesis. I think this will be remembered as as a contender for greatest.
That's fair enough, because I honestly only know what was in my time, so I don't have too much of a gauge. The best ones that I can think of are like East Coast, West Coast ones, regional crew battles at Big House, like those kind of ones. But if you go even further back to like the old school, like East Coast, West Coast, Genesis, like all those were definitely they're up there too.
Yeah.
It was weird. It felt like there was actual almost stakes in the crew battle.
This was the best modern crew battle, I think.
Yeah,
in a long time.
What were you saying, SF?
Yeah. I think this is like, even though there weren't any like stakes in particular, it's like $1,000, I think, but there weren't any stakes. But it really felt like every stock mattered, every player mattered, and it was just so much energy put into it, and it was so enjoyable to watch.
Another aspect, coming back to what GOML did right, having a crew battle bracket for everyone to play in was another great choice, because you had a way to engage the Twitch viewers in a really exciting high level crew battle. And then you had a way to engage the competitors actually in the event to play with their friends, get rowdy for them. All of it was just great. It filled the whole day with a lot of content and a lot of excitement. And there were still plenty of friendly setups too. So it was just a great balance for the Friday. And Friday is often like, the most complained about day, like not much is going on. Top players, get pretty drained there and stuff. So I think it did a really good job of that.
So I want to just kind of briefly transition into the next topic, which is the player that started off GOML crew battles looking a little shaky, Joshman, ended up having one of the best underdog runs in modern, maybe over the last 5 years, maybe or so, right? So we see Joshman not do too great in the crew battle, taking 3 stocks, and he ends up having the greatest tournament weekend of his life. First, big top 8 an Australian player has ever had. SF, Josh Mann's someone that we've seen do pretty well in America. We've seen him come here, go back to Australia, and obviously this is kind of like the end of his NA trip. I want to hear your thoughts on his trajectory as a player and sort of what his path has been like this year as far as his performances in America, and like sort of what's built up Josh Mann to where he is right now, and to this performance, really.
It's been a very, very strange year, I suppose, because, I mean, he started off in this weird, like, wants to play as Falco, wants to play as Sheik, wants to play as Marth, which we saw at SoCal Locals, and we saw briefly at Genesis when he lost to John Wick, going Sheik into Marth into Fox, and going out in 65th. And then at I think Emerald City, he went Sheik did Spark for whatever reason, and just played Sheik versus Fat Goku. And it was very sort of, I mean, his secondaries are amazing, almost as good as his Fox, but it was very strange just to see them. And then something just sort of changed, I think, in the past like month or so, where he would have these insanely close sets with S2J at SoCal Locals, was beating Kadoran in these nail-biter clenchers of sets. And then he finally got to actually like put it all together in an out-of-region, like big tournament. Was insane to see. It was was incredible to see. I think an amazing way to cap off
Yeah,
his NA experience.
that's what
We
I
all
was
knew it
gonna
was sort of
say.
possible ever since Summer 12. Like, we knew he could have that performance, and he was good enough to do it. But to like finally put it together in one tournament on the big stage,
It kind of
is
seemed
insane to
like
see.
he was battling more with like what he wanted to be in the game rather than what he was capable of. Like, it was very clear what he was capable of, but it was, I've seen him put out some tweets about like, does he want to take the game seriously? What, like, does he want to only commit to Fox? Like, things like that. And I think, I don't know, but maybe it being towards the end of his trip had something to do with him, like maybe wanting to leave a larger impression before he left again. That made it come all together, or at least to start taking it a little bit more seriously. Not that he wasn't before, but maybe just to like give it his all with his best character. Who knows? Maybe there wasn't anything like that, but it just seemed like something mentally changed.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so Ben, I want to hear your perspective on like, Joshman had so many great sets, right? So this is someone who beat Amsa. This is someone who beat Moki in the Fox Ditto. Historically a matchup that Moki quite rarely loses in, right? Like this, he's had every top Fox he's played number for quite some time, right? Then we see him take a set off IBDW, right?
Yep.
Which again, that's still a top win. It wasn't that long ago when we saw Joshman get 8 stocked in 2 games by Leffen. So like,
right.
What a massive turnaround. I mean, so like, I guess the question I want to ask you, Ben, is like, which of these sets do you think is most surprising for where?
If I had to pick, I would say the Amsa one was extremely surprising. Maybe it's the way the meta is going and more people are starting to understand Yoshi a bit better, largely due to like Amsa attending so many tournaments in such consecutive, fashion. Or I don't know. I mean, Yoshi's not the best character, but we've seen Amsa just decimate any non like top 5 Fox. So, and I don't recall Sora having any Yoshi experience either. So to see him take out Amsa and the way he did was really surprising. I saw that one in person, saw the last stock. It was crazy. That one surprised me the most, but I think all of them are equally surprising. Moki being such a force in Fox it is, IBW being such a force in general, and then Yoshi being such an unorthodox, fantastic player, especially. That's all 3 like really good wins for Fox.
SF, give me a number. Where does Joshman finish on this upcoming PGR?
Oh my god.
Top 15 at least, right?
I want to say, yeah, like maybe 15th-ish, honestly. I mean, if I am allowed to consider locals and these tournaments where top players are experimenting, as some would say, easily in the
if I had
top
to say
15,
like 13,
easily.
15, somewhere in like that, I think I saw.
Yeah,
what? I think that's
100%.
fair because SF, you do mention locals as some place that he shined in SoCal. I mean,
also, I think I saw it was you, Edwin, that brought up like at the time, like with Genesis, there were a lot of upsets that we thought like, oh, that's a rough loss, and then we found out later it's like, no, that wasn't a rough loss. It's just this player was also on a very big like uprising, and we saw that with Crudo, who took out Sora really early.
Yeah.
John Wick is still talented, maybe not the greatest loss, but Crudo is definitely not a bad loss by any means. At definitely his worst tournament.
John Wick might go on a crazy run at Double Down this weekend, and suddenly, that's also another top 20 loss now. Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe it's funny you mentioned Crudo because I think so highly of Crudo and Josh, right? So like, I think these 2 are like outstanding.
Yeah, 2 of my favorite players for sure.
Yeah, almost certainly finish in the top 25 or 30. However you cut. I would be very surprised if they finished out of that.
They both had really, really good starts to the year at least.
Yeah, I think it's funny that Crudo is the point of comparison because obviously they're natural link. But I think also in a way, like just to quickly talk about their results overall without getting too caught in the details. It's funny that John Wick is seen as a relatively weak loss or a surprising loss for Josh to follow because Crudo, we saw Crudo also have something, a version of that at CEO, right? With Akir beating him. So I think like
I think that's just the generation of Melee we're living in at the moment, where we have to say that, oh, this is objectively a bad loss from a ranking perspective, but from players, like, no, none of these people are bad by any means. This is just the level the game is being pushed to.
And I think what I've really admired about Josh in particular is that, look, I mean, we've had him on the show multiple times. Like we like Josh personally. We think he's an exciting player also. But even just objectively, you know, this is someone who's coming all the way to America from another continent. He's coming all the way multiple times, by a matter of fact, and he's entering our biggest tournaments. And you know, this is something that we've talked about a lot on the show. But like, if you have the opportunity to travel to regionals and travel to majors to compete, if you have a bad major, you know what typically helps that is actually just continue
to another one,
to attend another major. There's always more Melee tournaments, and I'm just I don't want to say proud because that sounds too like entitled, but I'm really impressed and inspired by sort of like his continued dedication to the game and to going to tournaments. And I think I think we all can agree that his GOML performance is just like an incredible wrap up to his return to NA.
Oh yeah, 100%.
100%.
Yeah, I mean, while Josh Man is certainly kind of the underdog run of the story, I think, you know, it's time that we get to talking about the guy who finished in #1, the real headline performance of this event. But before we do that, I do want to say that we have a pre-recorded segment that our wonderful not departed, that makes it sound like dead. Our wonderful usual host of the show has decided to leave behind a video introducing what we're going to talk about next. So without further ado, you know, Wheat has some words that he wants to give the listeners, the viewers, and to us three right now. So
what is up, everyone? It's Wheat live from my vacation home. Having a great time. Trying not to think about Melee, not really succeeding, but that is the life. So I watched GOML, I got to catch it. What an amazing tournament. Probably one of the best top 8s we've seen in a long time. And it answered the age-old question, can HBox win a major? Now it's time for the new question. Can HBox win 2 majors? So I want to thank Edwin and Ben for keeping it down while I'm on vacation. And I will pose that question to you two. So the question I have for you two is, can HBox win another major this year? Or is this going to be a year where he just goes one and done? I'll see you guys next week. Peace.
So, I think, first off, I just want to say, and this is not something that I'm willing to say publicly most of the time, I got owned. I didn't think HBox could do it. I thought heading into this event that it was almost certain that he was going to lose to IBDW if they both played. I thought the prospect of him not having to play Zane, who's been his hardest opponent, was very unlikely. I didn't think he could win. Yeah, I genuinely slept on Clutchbox, and I got owned for it. So I just wanted to say that out of the way.
No, I completely agree. When I remember it was Itachi asked me, like, how do you think Jmook is going to do versus Zane? And I thought, you know, based on his his trajectory is like started off with such an explosive genesis, but then like slowly some of the top players get to play him again, and then they generally have won. So it was insanely surprising. You know, when I saw Zane go up 2-0, I was like, okay, this makes sense. Jmook will be back, but he's got to, you know, readapt and really cement himself first. And he did within that set. It's definitely unavoidable the fact that he got around Zane, and he's yet to prove any signs of life versus him. But it did seem like Cody, while very hard, was doable. Out of at least, he sort of has 3 opponents that have, for the most part, looked impossible, and his only roadblocks to winning a major, which is Zane, Leffen, and IBW. IBW being the most doable. Give me 1 sec.
Yeah, so I think what Ben was going on with that was he was talking about like the typical, you know, like what was stopping HBox from winning a major, right? So he mentions those 3. I would want to add actually one more. I think Wizrobe, when he was active, was also
right. Yeah, that's true. You can't forget Wizzy. It's just easy to forget about him in the current landscape with his health issues. But in the current landscape for HBox to win a major, it was those three players for the most part. His only other like constant threats was like Plup. That's kind of it. Honestly, it's insane to think that really not all that long ago the list of threats to him was growing and growing and growing, and it just looked so hard, and he just really cleaned it up so fast to the point where now it doesn't even look doable anymore for anyone outside of like a very, count them on one hand group of players to constantly beat him or pose a threat. But the players that are on that hand are definitely very, very favored. So it's an interesting dynamic. One where it requires either him to prove that he still has what it takes to be the best in the world, or some bracket luck, which I think we saw a glimpse at both, which made it all the more interesting.
Yeah, I think that it's funny you mentioned that there are a small group of players that can beat him outside the very top tier, right? And I think that's something that we've seen this year, even on LAN at majors, right? So
he's played just about every top 20 player at this point and proven that like he still got them.
At least he can beat them, right? But like we have seen someone like Nunn challenge him, albeit through a very miraculous, last back.
But even then, even just at this event, you saw how dominant he cleaned that up, and someone like SDJ2, it was online, but he, I remember not that long ago losing TMT West Coast, and then just absolutely dominating against SDJ again. And,
it's so interesting. It's so interesting how he can turn around in just like a tournament, like a snap of his fingers, right? I mean, I think if you asked me, and in fact, for a matter of fact, Jaxilla asked me last week, can HUNGRYBOX turn it around from losing to KGH and getting fifth at CEO, in his own home state to just
that's a good point. There are a few select. It seems like Fox is the only matchup at this point that he's still prone to getting upset by. It's yet to be seen some of the online people who have been beating him on LAN. You have Aklo. It would be someone.
Yeah.
Moki.
You could see Moki play him this upcoming weekend.
Hopefully you can see that. That's definitely a big question mark. Bobby. It's like Bobby, Moki, Aklo. Those three in particular are still beating him online even now. So it's those three in particular are definitely question marks. But as far as every other matchup, he's cleaned it up. There's not really any Mars, Sheiks, Peaches anymore that are beating him. Puffs, like none of them. It's basically just even the Falcos. He's solidly beaten Magi multiple times now. Solidly beaten Fiction. Solidly beaten Ginger. Mango goes Fox and is still losing with Fox. So it's easy to assume that he wouldn't have any problems with this Falco either. Falco seems like he's got that unlock again. Where it's shades of the old HBox, the prime HBox, where Fox is slowly becoming his only matchup he's losing again, which is interesting.
Yeah, so I guess to go back to Wheat's original question, can HBox win a second major? What do you think, Ben? Are you leaning toward a yes? Are you doubtful?
I am 100% yes, but with bracket luck at the very moment. He has not shown longevity is what he hasn't been able to show versus those select people. He needs to see him show any more signs of life versus Zane and Leffen in particular, especially Leffen. Those ones are ugly. And Zane, those sets have looked doable sometimes. Like it's always just been like one rest away from some of the games, but Zane always looks like it's completely in his control, and it's only getting worse. So he does need to show a little bit more there for me to start having more confidence that he'll be at least winning more majors, if not the best in the world again. He's close. Yeah. The fact that it's down to like now maybe two players that he is unable to beat, because you don't have to constantly beat every single player 100% of the time to be the best player in the world. Not with the current shape that Melee is in, where everyone is so good and the head-to-heads are very skewed and hard to rank. He just has to be able to prove that he can take sets off of everyone, even if he's not winning every single set. And I think that that's the one thing that's held him back from being number one, at least on the summer rank.
SF, it seems like Ben is on the yes train for he can win a second major, but with luck. Do you disagree with that? Do you agree? Are you wholeheartedly on the H God train now? Tell me, what are your thoughts on him?
Oh, I have to say yes too. I have to say yes. I think what Ben ended with is so right. Like in a world where everyone is so upsettable, where like you don't have to beat Leffen or Zane or maybe even IBDW to win a major, where you have to beat a Jmook, a Nun, an S2J, a Kadoran. Instead, I don't know. HBox can do it. HBox versus
we just saw him do it. So.
It's a funny thing.
And honestly, even if he's down versus IBW, all it takes is for him to get past him like 1 or 2 times, like we saw at GOML for a great for an HGOD bib for sure.
Yeah,
So,
I mean,
I'm not convinced that he's like favored versus Cody in the future, and I will still always favor Cody at least.
But it did seem like he's
what happened? It
worked the ledge planking strat a little bit.
Yeah.
To be a little bit more frustrating. And it was interesting to see him like play for the ledge grab limit, whereas before he was just camping. It seems like now he's actually playing for Puff's maximum like ledge time, ledge planking rules. It'll be interesting to see, for better or worse, how that develops.
I wonder if it'll also be interesting to see how the reverse pop off meta game develops as well. Like, do you guys think this brings us into new waters as far as their rivalry? I mean, who's to say what's coming up next? You think, is HUNGRYBOX going to try to beat him to the punch a little faster? Are they both going to start popping off on each other?
I think the next one they both will. That's my prediction. Regardless of the outcome, it'll be funny.
Do any of you guys remember the
HBox just popping off the Cody?
Do any of you guys remember the Armada and HBox pop off? I think from like Summit 3 or something, where Armada keeps popping off, then HBox pops off back and starts swearing, and Armada pops off harder.
Yeah. It was especially great because the way the Summit like camera, where there was just no game sound or anything. It was just like you just heard the room. Yeah,
it was dead silent except for that.
Yeah, Ben, I think Critical released a video talking about it being like the ultimate like moment that gamers need to see or whatever. I forget the name of the title, but like within a day it had 780,000 views.
It already has 1 million.
Yeah. Okay. So it already has 1 million right now. I want you to seriously consider the possibility that, there were Doc kids a long time ago. There were Evo kids, MLG kids. Is it possible that the scene gets people, that people and a significant group of people get into the scene from being, reverse pop-off kids? Is this a thing?
Unfortunately, no. I think the only thing that this is going to gain for anyone is money in HBox's pocket. Ultimately, it's insane how he just keeps winning. In every single it's only going to get him more viewers and more donos and more subs.
It really is all for the content, isn't it?
Yeah, even when he loses, he wins.
He chooses to lose.
How does he see the game so differently? So much better.
So Cody tried his best, but you can't take down the behemoth of content that is
of content.
It's almost like a ball that just sucks everyone into it, right? Like when you play a set versus HUNGRYBOX, win or lose, you get sucked into the Huanten sphere.
You do. I know firsthand of like people asking me about like, oh, what do you think of this pop off? I'm like, I lost. What do you mean? What do I think of the pop off?
Yeah, I'm imagining 1 or 2 people just going up to you at majors and asking you how you feel about HUNGRYBOX pop-offs. And you're like, I don't know how to feel about it. I deal with it.
Yeah, firsthand.
I wonder if it's going to start inspiring other people to do the same thing, right, Ben? So like when you beat HUNGRYBOX or when you play the next set, regardless of how it goes, are you going to beat him to the punch on it? Are you? What
Nah.
does this change your approach?
I've actually never popped off in any set, or even when I like think about it, I always forget. Like I just don't have that urge. It's like more often than not, it's just I'm always holding my breath in a set I'm about to win, and it's just the biggest exhale every single time. So I just don't even like. I never have even thought about it. But the emotion is still there, even if it's not as visible.
Yeah, that definitely makes sense. I think the elephant in the room in this discussion, when we're talking about HUNGRYBOX's chances of winning a major, we mentioned all these names. We mentioned Zane, we mentioned IBW, Nunn, S2J, all these people. But let's be real. I think we all agree that, in some form or of another, like, is HUNGRYBOX beating IBW big? Yes, it is, but it's not something that we necessarily like. The singular set, a singular case of him defeating IBW in a high stakes set was not something that had zero precedent, right? Like it was, maybe do we think that it would lead him to win a major? No, but we saw it as something that was possible, even if it was long shot odds. I think the real thing about a HUNGRYBOX victory is that, we're talking about likely brackets and eating bracket lucks, but like, how much is bracket luck if Jmook becomes a name that you can reliably see in winners finals, right? So I think, when we talk about HUNGRYBOX's chances of winning a major, all of us agree that Zane is currently his hardest opponent. But, the biggest thing that would get in the way of Zane's path to winners finals, that would just objectively, as it stands right now, make things easier for HBox, is Jmook's presence there, right? So like when we're talking about
getting a top Sheik and not a secondary Sheik like Levin, but just a solo Sheik has changed the dynamic for other characters like drastically.
So when we're talking about the dynamic of can HUNGRYBOX win a second major, we're also talking about, is it likely that Zane is going to get there? Is Zane as guaranteed of a presence that deep into bracket as he used to be in the past? Is Zane in danger in general? Like what do we think? What do we think about this weird trifecta? Because it really feels like just within themselves at the top of the kind of people that attend GOML, it seems like we got a weird little RPS.
Yep, it goes back to the RPS on Twitter that somebody posted. The HBox Zane Jmook, which obviously falls apart when you throw in every single top Fox.
Yeah, everyone else.
So like all these people, but at least in that situation, it is a neat little RPS that's developed, and it's interesting to see that dynamic. I think what's more interesting to talk about is what players have proven that they can beat everyone and don't have any matchup roadblocks versus the players that have proven to be able to win majors but have certain roadblocks. In my mind, Zane, IBW, Leffen, and Plup, and maybe Mango on a really good day, have all proven that regardless of the matchup, regardless of the player, they can win a major on any given day. Because they have they basically have all their bases covered. Whereas you take players like HBox, like we just talked about, extremely hard roadblocks with Zane and Leffen. Jmook, who's 0-4, clearly has a roadblock versus at least HBox, if not more puffs. It's yet to be seen. AMSA is proven to be somewhat of a roadblock for Jmook. I think they played at least twice.
I think twice. I think
they played
Smash
twice.
World Tour.
Smash World Tour and at Battle of BC.
Both 3-0s, so that's another roadblock for Jmook. Does really well versus Zane. So far, I think, yes, he beat Leffen, but I think that will prove to be sort of another roadblock if you give them another set. And maybe I'm wrong, but Leffen did look very shaky versus a lot of matchups who previously would never have saw him lose in or do as badly as he was. And now Leffen seems to be back in full force. We saw him almost lose to Polish. We saw him lose to AMSA for the first time and then come back and just destroy him. We saw him lose an extremely shaky and sloppy set versus Jmook, at least on his end. So my prediction is that Leffen will continue to be a really big roadblock for any Sheik main. Cody, definitely still a big force for Jmook. Amsa has a lot of different roadblocks, clearly has shown potential in a lot, but struggles to beat Zane, struggles to beat any given top 5 player, depending on how he's playing. But all the current contenders, either it feels like they are very consistent versus some people, but have roadblocks, or they are very inconsistent, but when they're playing well, they can easily win the major. And it's an interesting 50-50 dynamic, at least in the top 8, roughly.
So I think it's interesting that you talk about this, right? We're talking about like players, what their perceived roadblocks are, which players don't have perceived roadblocks when they're playing well. I think you bring up these points. I think they're good to talk about, and I think like it really just goes to show that I think we're in the most dangerous era of competitive Melee, right? This is around the time, past the midpoint of the year, where it's normal for the beginning of the year to have crazy results, but usually there's some kind of order that comes around now. Whereas with this, you look at the 2 to 6 spots, and it really just seems completely in flux. You either have people that have certain roadblocks that they need to avoid in order to win a major, or in the case of someone like Plup, who I think we've seen do well against roughly everyone on the top level, we just haven't seen enough of him this year in general to fully confidently confirm that. So SF, I want to ask you something, just with regards to Zane. I think we all agree that as far as the current season of Melee goes, in spite of him not being quite Armada, HBox, Mango level dominant, he is the most consistently reliable player. I think we can, barring, I won't even say barring, like, I think by the end of Double Down, it's 99% guaranteed that Zane will finish, this summer PGR as number 1, right? I don't think anyone has risen to take where his place was at the end of Pound, right? But my question to you, SF, is by the end of this year, we'll have seen a lot more majors, right? And by that point, who do you think can, what would you need to see in order for you to reconsider the idea of Zane currently being the best player in the world?
I need to see him a lot more versus Sheik, honestly. I think one of the big problems Zane has right now is I'm not sure how he is versus Sheik, at least at the top level. Like his last losses, I think his past 6 losses now at majors have been Jmook, Leffen, Jmook, Plup. Yeah. And so I know if you upset Albert, I think, Ben, you get to play Zane the current seeding at Double Down.
I wouldn't say for anyone to get their hopes up. Marth's not really a good matchup of mine, but if he's especially flustered versus Sheik, you might even see Sheiks like me or Crudo or Spark take a game here and there, It's
exactly
characteristic. It's yet
I think if that's a matchup that becomes more prevalent for him, like that he has to play a lot more.
He knew what he actually predicted this and started to prepare well in advance. And it was interesting that it just didn't really happen for a bit. Because I remember early 2021, halfway through the year, as soon as Leffen decided to pick up Sheik, he knew that okay, this is going to be I think he literally said Marth Sheik will be the matchup of 2022. And we've kind of seen that. But at first we were like, oh, I guess not. I guess Zane is just going to win. And then Jmook kind of just came out of nowhere, proving Genesis wrong, making the adjustments. And now it's like Zane has a serious roadblock for the first time since, 2019? Even further
back on the HBox or Axe, right? Like Axe and HBox were very hard for him.
And I think the fun thing to consider is if Axe can actually come back as another sort of team for Zane. Now that there's no real need for Axe or Zane to grind Pikachu anymore, and Axe just has to play Zane again. I'd be curious to see if Zane or Axe can return to being that demon, and if Zane gets more prevalent demons that are going to meet him in top 16, top 8. I think at that point I'd have to start looking at other contenders like Leffen, I think, or Plup, who could actually be more consistent.
I think as far as the summer rank goes, the only player going to Double Down that could even remotely have an argument above him is IBDW. but even then, that's a very loose, very unlikely case scenario. There's just nobody else going that's like HBox, I guess, but like he's so down in the head-to-head versus like certain people that I just don't see it.
Yeah, I don't think one of that would be enough from him.
No.
I don't think it would be enough for IBDW. I'll be honest.
So we're more talking about like end of year and end game stuff here, but yeah, I think that it just comes back to like there's such a large player group now of that we just haven't seen enough. Like even in my brain, like Jmook, there's still a lot that needs to be seen there. Jmook versus Pikachu has not been seen. Jmook versus other Falcons, because to be honest, none definitely seemed like he was caught off guard. Has a somewhat Roadblock versus Sheik in the past. I want to see Jmook, especially versus other Falcons. Like a more prime Leffen, Axe.
Jmook in the Ditto.
Ices, I don't even know what character Jmook would go versus Ices. We haven't seen him versus Slug or like Choodat or anything like that. So there's a lot to be said about like players that are clearly out there, clearly who could make a big dent into these top 6, top 8 players that just currently aren't going to events, who likely will by the end of the year.
That's such a fascinating way to put it, because like it seems like we all agree he's in danger, but like as far as like being a dominant, world beating player, but as far as like someone to step up and take that #1 spot, it does seem unusually challenging, doesn't it? Right? Like it really like I think
it just comes back to the point that like we have exited the era where the #1 player is fully dominant, at least for this year. I think that no matter what, the #1 player is not going to be as clear cut as it has been in the past, or even any of the spots. It's definitely still Zane. He's definitely the safest pick, but give it. We know Wizrobe is right around the corner. We know Axe is eventually going to be back. Leffen will be back more. Like there's definitely a lot coming for him that he's having problems now, and it's only going to get harder. So we'll see what he can do. But yeah.
So like I think as far as the top level goes, I think we agree that like Zane versus Spaceys is still a fair, like that's the kind of bracket that he wants to see, right?
Yeah.
Like, if Zane sees IBDW in his bracket, is that necessarily an auto win? Probably not. That's probably going to be like IBDW. I think the way
there's only a couple Spaceys that you could say aren't an auto win at this point.
Yes.
Only like less you can count on one hand. IBW and maybe Mango, but even that looked pretty grim. It's Spaceys are definitely always going to be preferable for him.
Yeah.
Like I heard it through the grapevine. I don't know how serious this is or when it will be revealed, but I have heard rumblings that Zane is considering developing a Puff secondary.
Yeah, I thought that was already like, he hasn't posted about it publicly, but it's been like, yeah, I guess it has mostly just been a rumor, but he's already been working on it. Him and he was playing Moki Sheik, just running sets and stuff.
Yeah, Ben, what are your thoughts on that? Do you think this is something that we'll see this year if it gets bad enough, or do you think
it only makes sense
no matter what?
I think it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense in the context of Leffen, which is what seems like he was making it for. Because at best, you're only going to have a preferable like counterpick war on one stage. Only one counterpick time. Because I don't see his Puff beating his Fox, whereas I do see Leffen's Sheik beating his Puff. And it seems like that would be a really big time investment for not a whole lot of payoff. It depends on how much he wants to push it and use it, I guess. There's a lot of potential there for like Puff versus Pikachu, Puff versus the solo Sheiks. But like, it would take a lot of work. It would certainly add an interesting dynamic, but in terms of like the Leffen counterpick war, which is what I think he said he wanted it for, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense in my head.
Yeah, I agree. I think I think especially like you mentioned Leffen as one name, but I think even entering a counter pick war with someone like Plup is not something that you wanted. I feel like that'll. I feel
No,
like
Plup and left secondaries are just so strong and so well practiced. It just seems like a lot of work. Whereas that same amount of work could probably just be put into the Marth and have an even bigger payoff. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that like Zayn Jigglypuff is very good. I'm sure if he really wanted to seriously take it out and turn it, I'm sure he could, and he could find some level of success. It's just more like, would it be worth it at the risk of now opening Pandora's box when it comes to games, right?
No, I agree. It seems like an odd thing to do in a midpoint for the year, but we'll see if he ever decides to do that. It seems like an idea, something he maybe wants to try. And I'm for that. I don't know. It's always, if you're having a matchup you're struggling in, just like trying out a different character, seeing if it fits you. Like I can relate to that a lot with like the Luigi Ices thing. Whereas like objectively, all signs pointed to just work it out, grind it out with Marth because that's the better matchup. But what worked for me in my playstyle and what I wanted was Luigi versus Ices. And it actually paid off tremendously. So sometimes in Melee, it's not always about like what the best, most correct thing is logistically. And sometimes it's more about a comfort pick.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. So I guess to close this discussion on Zayn, wrap a bow on it, then ship it off. We're going to play another numbers game, all right? So, Ben, I'm going to ask you, how many more majors does Zayn win this year?
How many majors is he going to is the question. I don't know. I know he's...
Ballpark.
I actually think he will win Double Down with none of the Sheiks in attendance. There's no Pikachus or Sheiks. And I think that there's no Wizzy, there's no, like, every large threat to him is not there. I think the only one that I could see him losing to at this event is Cody. And that even then, Cody has to beat him twice and make it to him. So I've got Zayn winning at least Double Down, cementing himself as number one for the summer. And I don't know. It's the sky's the limit once he breaks through the Sheik roadblock.
So can I say like 2 or 3 from you?
I think even more. I think we're looking at 5 or 6 or more.
Wow.
I think that he's such a hard worker, super smart. He's already asking a bunch of Sheiks to grind. And you can see how close he already was multiple times to at least beating Jmook. Like he went up 2-0 twice and then just kind of like started dropping a bunch of stuff. I think if he figures out just a little bit more, we'll see him turn the corner in that sooner than people might expect.
SF, give it a number. How many more majors does Zayn win this year?
I'd say like 4. I can see him win like Double Down, Shine, maybe Smash Con. But I think I'm just sort of also worried. I want to also see him. I'm worried for him on the bigger stage, like at a big house, for example. Because Zayn, I think one of the takeaways I had from the Jmook sets at GOML was just how I think just the pressure gets to him a little bit. And I think it more like prestige.
We're looking at like big houses, Smash World Tours, Panda Circuits, like things like that.
Yeah, exactly. It might. I don't know if someone like really puts the pressure on him in a Game 5 set. I don't know if Zayn's going to be able to.
Yeah, and we've seen him fall to the pressure even versus Spaceys. So we'll see.
It's kind of wild that we're saying this about the number one player in the world, right? Like, think of the expectations that we're putting on him. Like, this is someone that all of us agree is going to end Summer PGR, like, number one. We all think that, Ben, you put it yourself, right? That if Zayn won 5 or 6 majors more majors by the end of the year, would we really be that surprised? No.
Well, the thing is that there's a lot of majors coming. So I just don't know how many he's going to is the thing. Mm-hmm. It really, like, if he's confirmed for like 10 more majors, it's like he's the favorite to win all 10 of those. So it could just happen, it could just happen.
Yeah, who knows?
Danny, SF, does Zayn win more majors this year, or does the field win more majors? Out of majors that Zayn attends.
I would say the field. I mean, I think the field's winning right now, right? Up 3-2. No, 4-2. 3-2. I think the field. I think the field's stronger than it ever has been. I think that Zane's scary matchups are the ones who could be the ones winning majors, like Leffen, like Plup. So I think
more interesting.
I don't know. I feel honestly.
I think Leffen is actually a very strong case for starting to win lots of majors. So you just never know what he's attending and what he'll actually make you do. But now that his Sheik, like that's all he's been working on with Sheik, he can start to put a lot more focus into the matchups he's losing with Fox.
Yeah.
Yeah, sky's the limit for Leffen too. I think Leffen is just so good. He consistently looks to be like a top 3 level player almost, even when he's bad.
I'm gonna say 3, but I do share. I think I share both of your reservations for whatever reason. Be it maybe the pressure of the biggest stages of all. In spite of the fact that he literally won Genesis, yeah, I do worry about Zane in high pressure situations. When coming down to last stock.
I don't worry about him as much. I think Genesis, like you said, was an insane showing.
But it was dominant too, other than the IBDW set, which is very admittedly.
Well, the IBDW set was what I was going to bring up. Was we saw him in the exact same spot, reminiscent of Summit 11. That probably haunts him forever. He, he did it. He overcame that, and he beat Cody to win the tournament. So
I'm going to say 3. I think he wins. I think he wins Double Down this week. I think he wins one of Phantom or another tournament, and I think he will take a big house or Summit. I think he'll win 3. Maybe he wins 5 or 6, like Ben says. Maybe he wins 4, but we'll see. Why don't we talk about the rest of Double Down then? Because I think this is another major coming up in the year. This is going to be the final major to close the PGR season. So a lot of players have quite a bit at stake. You got circuit points. You have potential summer ranking.
Yeah, even more important, someone like me, I'm really pushing for the Smash World Tour points, and it's really huge that GOML went well, 100 points. That's pretty good. I'm really looking to get like 100, 200, 250 here. It's going to be really important for people because if I look correctly, pretty much after SmashCon for the Smash World Tour circuit, that's it for NA Platinum events. I think that's literally the last one. And most of the Platinum and events just left in the circuit are all international events that you likely won't see the common man, common top 50 player even attending. It's either going to be really top heavy players that are already for sure getting in, or international players. So making a last stand here for Smash World Tour is going to be very important.
Yeah, so why don't we just kind of looking at the notable entrants and everything. I think you pretty much get the dynamic exactly right, Ben. I mean, you got people like we mentioned Zane before, but you got IBW, we got HBox. Plup's unfortunately not going to be attending, but we still have Amsa, Kadoran, we have Mango, Nun, Moki. Then you got kind of your top 25 players like Fiction, SJ, SFAT, Slug, Magi. We have potentially yourself as well, Ben. People around that range. And then you get into a big mid-level grinders, and you have a couple of international players there too, like Professor Pro, Frenzy, Melee Stats' very own Chape going there. So yeah, I think we got a bit of a top-heavy event, but it creates a very interesting dynamic because with so many players at the top level around, and with this era of competition where the mid-level is very dangerous and able to punch above its perceived weight class a lot more frequently than maybe before in the past, or we just see more opportunities for them to prove it. Yeah, I think it creates a very interesting dynamic, especially with those spots on the line. SF is, other than, Melee Stats Chape, who will dominate the event and win 6 going every single person. What are some names that you're excited to see at Double Down in particular?
I'm excited to see Shepard Lima. Fiction.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's probably the standout pick for someone that is seated very highly and has not been to a big event. What was his last big event? It was like
No,
Pound.
Pound.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Where he did very well. So
He beat Mango and None. So
yeah, 2 top 10
Shepard is
players.
always. I'm curious to see if he's still doing. He's in his phase right now where he's like, I want to be a very fast Falco, so I'm gonna be pressing a lot of buttons and holding forward, and so he's gonna lose to Khalid and S2J.
He's in my path, so yes, hold forward. Let me shield grab. Let me shield grab you 8 times.
Or he's gonna be, I will shoot 10 million lasers and you can do nothing because I am Falco and I am just a great character.
Yeah.
I think Fiction's a very interesting person who to just in general, obviously, but he's got a lot to like from his results and a lot to break down, right? So when we're talking about his Genesis to Pound stretch, we're talking about a period of time where this guy just picks up like 4 wins that look great now, right? So like obviously this is not the same Mango that we've known from the past, but getting a win on Mango is still very good. But in addition to that, he's got to win on None. He's got to win on. He's got to win on Ginger as well, and he's got to win on Josh Man, right? So like
a lot of wins on Josh.
Yeah. Well, yes, including local events. Yes, he has quite a few wins on Josh. But yeah, this is something that we're seeing consistently go toe to toe with, if not like just outright on top with top 15, top 20 players. Yeah, I think I'm very excited to see what.
I think he is just in that range. I think he's 15 to 20, maybe higher himself.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. If those
top
results
skill,
are,
of course.
Yeah, top 10 skill according to his Twitter. But yeah, I think that's a great pick for someone to look out for at this tournament. I think that's very good. Someone I actually want to highlight is we didn't get to go over all the performances that happened at GOML, but I'm very interested to see how Professor Pro and Frenzy in particular do at this event. Frenzy, this is someone we saw get top 16 at GOML as well. We saw Professor Pro finish just outside of top 60 thanks to our friend over here in the show. Why don't you quickly walk us through that set? By the way, I know that you told me it was a pretty good one before the show. So.
It was a good one, yeah. At least for me. The first 2 games were really close, like last hit, and he got me both the games. And I knew I was like, this is not over. Like I'm not getting 3-0'd here, especially since like I thought it was weird how so many people were just counting me out like as an auto loss. Like I was just reading in the melee stats, like so many people were like, oh yeah, you'll play this player like in losers after I lose to him, and I'm like, I can definitely beat this guy. Like I don't have that much to go off of, but he can't be that much like crazier than like some of the other Foxes that beat him, like Zamu or like Foxes on that level. And I'm like, I think I can do this. People are counting me out way too much here, and I tend to do better when people don't expect it or start to count me out in some regards. So after going down 0-2 to really close games, I was like, no, I can still do this. I know I can still do this, and I did it. Just figured it out, kind of adapted, and all the games got progressively better for me by the end of the set. So I was really proud of that set. It was really fun to get to play Europeans too. I really enjoyed when I got to play Triff, for example, at Smash World Tour. When I saw that, I was like, yes, let's go. Like I really.
What a bizarre sentence. I just want to say that I really enjoyed when I saw that I had to play Triff. This is not something that I think if you said that to any player outside the top 10 or like top 15 in Europe, I think their heads might explode. It's just not something.
No, I don't know why you wouldn't want to. Like I want to play the people that I'm not going to get a chance to play for, potentially ever. So getting a chance to play, I watch the Europeans sometimes too, and I'm like, I don't know where they are. I don't know where I stand in that range. I think I could beat like Professor Pro, Frenzy, Solo Battle. Like I think I could beat that range of players and like prove that I definitely can. So it's always a fun time to see that I get to play someone who I normally would never even get to play. Like I think online really changed that too, where it's like normally it's like everyone's someone that I don't get to play, but now it's like, okay, there's the Europeans and foreign players that I really don't ever get to play. So it's a more special experience.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you had a great set with Prof. I thought that was a great win for you, especially because he's someone with a great history of defeating a lot of top level Sheik players. So that was a great.
Yeah,
win.
even going into it, I was like trying to look for Sheik sets, and I'm like, he hasn't actually played any Sheiks outside of Europe, from what I can see, other than Plup like 7 years ago. So like, there wasn't really much to go off of, and I think that helped.
Recent memory, yeah.
Yeah, it was all like European sets with like Max or like other Sheiks, and then really, really, really old sets where the game was just completely different. We're in the Jmook Sheik era now, where like I actually got him with so much like Jmook stuff that he just didn't quite seem ready for. So yeah, it was interesting. I had a lot of fun that set.
Yeah, and I think we're gonna learn a little bit more about Prof this weekend as well. I think
and Frenzy, yep. I think that those two have more to show.
Max is showing up as well. So
yep.
It's just fun seeing more of the UK. I actually owe Kingu a UK deep dive at some point. I have the outline of it prepared.
Now, I'm a big fan of the Europe or like all the foreign players that just don't get chances. It's always fun to see. I always root for them because yeah.
Did you money match Kingu?
No, I did not. I don't think he knew that. Like, I don't think he realized what he was saying when he was like, "Oh, if I beat Jamron, we'll play." Like for sure. I was like, huh. Okay. You sure about that?
Oh my god.
Good.
It was funny.
I love Kingu.
You know, it's so funny because there's so many levels of big dogging that go on there, right? So it's like you're not just big dogging him by proving him wrong. You're big dogging him by beating the guy that he thinks will beat you because he can't consistently it's like the gym leader in his region, right? So it's so many multiple layers of getting owned here that, you know, I just love it.
That's why that set made me happy for sure.
I love Kingu
oh yeah, he seems nice.
Yeah, he's a very. I wouldn't say he seems nice. No, he's definitely not a nice individual. But he's very funny, and he's a pleasure to talk to. Good guy. No, he's not a good guy. I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't go.
I don't know much about him, so
I shouldn't go.
He's really young, isn't he?
Yeah, no, he's just very fun. Yeah,
I think.
Yeah. So yeah, I think we got a good amount of stakes going on at Double Down. One thing that I will say, after the Pound episode, I got to hear, you know, about what the Pound experience was like for Wheat. I do think that VGBC, you know, just, you know, to be fully honest, I think that their first entry back with like a big major event was a little rough.
It was a little rough, yeah.
Yeah.
People were really disappointed. I think it shows in the entrant numbers too. When I saw it was like 380, I was like, wow, that's really low for like how top heavy this was.
Yeah. That the event was a little rough for them in terms of, you know, like the venue, you know, the stream showing up on time, and, you know, like I think the community was pretty you know, blunt with how it responded to the event. But I'm excited to see, you know, the team come together at Double Down again to
give it another go.
Yeah, to give it another go to full, you know, like their full heart and effort. It's going to be in Vegas, so I think it'll be a lot. I think the location will probably be a bit better for, you know, comparison to Laurel.
I had a great time at Smash World Tour qualifier and the finals, so it seems like it's just hit or miss with the GBC events.
I mean, they've been around for so long, right? So, and like they're ultimately hosting a big event with stakes as part of a circuit that you know, that they're part of with stakes. So I'm really excited to go to the event. I'm excited to see you two there, obviously.
Yeah.
Excited to see how the top level shakes up. You know, speaking of which, how exactly do we think this tournament's gonna turn out? You know, I know that, you know, Plup and Wizrobe aren't going to be there, but, you know, with all these names still in attendance, you know, it does still seem like Zane should win this event. But
yeah, it seems like unless Mango has a surprise return to form, it's going to be a Zane win. That's my prediction, is unless Mango has a miraculous Mango-esque event, like, it's probably just going to be a Zane win. I think the more interesting storylines is like how the rest of the field performs regarding the summer ranking, because there's a lot going. Maybe there's not a lot going on for the number one spot, but that doesn't mean that there's not so much going on for every other spot.
Yeah, I mean, even just looking through these names, right? So I mentioned some of the players that we'd associate or that we'd see as clean top 25 players, right? SF, you bring up Fiction. I would bring up someone like Moki as well, SFAT, Slug, Magi, Ben, obviously. But even you got your people like Salt showing up. You have someone like
Yeah,
who's
yeah. I thought there were a couple people, Salt being one of them, that were like seated lower than my perceived like view of their skill, and I think that is extremely scary for certain players. Like I think Salt's path is what was it? It was like Kadoran
Yeah.
into Slug.
Yeah.
And we saw how bad he beat him at Genesis Slug.
you know,
So
Darn a little tough, but like I still think it's a Falcon Marth set, and Salt
yeah,
takes very close.
Salt almost beat Zane, and I would say there's a pretty big difference between Kadoran and Zane in terms of the Falcon matchup. So like, yeah, I think if Salt is able to push through Kadoran, there's a really big chance that Salt probably makes top 8. Actually,
It's so interesting with Salt because every single, I love talking about this concept, right? I love talking about this concept of Smash prospects, right? Like a player that even if they're not at the top level, like when you everyone you talk to who's played them talks like glowingly about them, right? So this is something that I've seen happen to Zane. When Zane was on the come up in MDVA, every single person who talked about playing friendlies with Zane was like, "Oh, this guy's going to be a top 10 player someday. He's going to be so good." People just said the same thing about IBDW in New York when he was on his comeback. IBDW even I remember because I was I was a competitor around that time, and this is like 2015 or 2016 or so, and IBW already had like a coach, right? So like this is someone that was insanely dedicated to the game and very serious about it, even from before he was even a top 100 player, right? And I feel like with I mean, just to get one more example out of the way, I think Wizrobe is an example of someone who immediately people were like, this guy is going to be a future top player. Every single top player that I've talked to about Salt has just like, it's almost as if they've suddenly decided, like, oh yeah, like by 2023, Salt is going to be a top 10 player. Like, it's going to happen. It's like they've all, this is a reality that they've just all agreed will happen, or they've just like agreed as inevitable.
yeah. And now it's just like, what unfortunate player has him in their path. So I was very relieved to see, because it was originally projected that me and him would play for like 33rd, and I was like, my heart just sank. I was like, no way we're playing that. That is brutal.
Oh, brutal.
Yeah,
Oh
so
my
I was
God.
really relieved to see that changed. But yeah, no, I fully agree. Any player, it's got to be scared to play him for sure. I think looking at the seeding, the people, in my opinion, that stand out who might make surprising runs is like Salt, which we already covered. SFAT is another one who actually has a very favorable bracket. Maybe people are sleeping on a little too hard just because he hasn't been active or performing as well. But clearly, I'm looking at his bracket right now, and there's no reason why he couldn't just get 4th, 5th. I think it's really possible. Those two, in my opinion, are the top 2 for like standout picks.
SF, is there anyone that you want to highlight as a player to look out for alongside your good?
At least for someone that you maybe wouldn't expect based on the seeding to do like super well.
I mean, there is one name coming back for his first big event in like, I don't even know how long. It's been like 3-4 years, and that's Junebug. Now a Doc main. Coming in at like I think the 61st seed. And this is a person who I think was at one point a top 20, top 30 player who would be able to take consistent sets off Zane in 2019.
And maybe I think for stretches, certainly he looked. I don't know if he ever got like top 30 outright in a summer rank, but I know that he had stretches where he outright looked like that.
Actually, a third player that I thought of that definitely to look out for is Slug. We haven't seen Slug since Genesis.
Yeah,
and Slug was only stopped by Peach.
The Peach matchup.
Yeah, Salt and Peach. And looking at his bracket, it's all Mars Spacies. People he's beaten before.
Slug zone. He loves that.
Yeah.
When Slug doesn't have to play Fox, like he doesn't play his Fox, he's a very daunting player.
Yeah.
His path is KJH, who is doing Falco for ICs.
Oh my God.
Yeah, so that's rough for Quindy and Kadoran, who they haven't played that much, but like he did win the last set online.
I think even
I
Kadorn's
remember that set.
like he doesn't practice against Dices anymore because there's none of them, and he was like, "Yeah, if I play Slug in bracket, I'm just gonna accept
Yeah,
it."
and Slug is the reason I dropped Marth in that matchup. So he's too good at it. Like
very good at
if you
that.
talk to Logan too, like he makes Logan like
Yeah.
say that Ices win that matchup. It's insane. So that's a really scary opponent for Kadoran. And then he would have Cody, who, you know, he's beaten in the past. Spacies, that's what he wants. So definitely another player to look out for.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think you know, just talking about the mid level of people at this event, like just outside the top, I'm very interested to see how Albert does. This is someone that like I think every time we've seen him in the last like 2 years or so, he typically like does pretty well and then like disappears for a while and then like comes back and it's like, oh, it's Albert. Yeah, this guy's pretty good. And then he just like disappears from the public like consciousness again.
I am excited if I get to play him. That's projected, and he's a player who I've done well versus in the past. I've won my last 2 or 3 sets versus, and is one of my first chances to like really like a goal of mine is to like move up in the Sheik ranking at least, or like the best Sheiks. And in my eyes, is a chance to like cement myself as like a contender for like one of the better Sheiks, or at least to cement in the tier of like Face Roll, Crudo, like Spark, like that tier. That's going to be a make or break set for me personally. And you're right, he comes out of nowhere, so it's definitely a set to look out for. My bracket is extremely dependent on him and how that set goes, so it's definitely interesting.
SF.
I have 2 more people I want to say, just real quickly. Number 1, it's Prince Abu.
I saw he was going, and I was like, wow, he's going.
Dude, he's
Yeah.
good. Don't sleep on him.
He was so far down in the seating that I almost didn't notice. And then once I did, I was like, oh shit, Prince Abu.
He has Aura into Moki. And 2 matchups, I think. Aura
beat
can win
Aura.
from floating in, but I think he can definitely beat Aura. And I don't know, man. Moki
probably
before a top 8 set is very scary to me.
It's Monkey versus Puff. Like to be fair,
Pretty
this is,
rough.
but this
It's definitely a rough
that's
spot.
crap.
Prince Abu was at Holdadel, and so you did get to see. This isn't like his first event. This is like his second, third now.
Yeah.
Holdadel, he lost to J-Flex reverse 3-0 actually, and then 3-1 to Zamu. So if that's any indication of how he'll do, but he looked great in some other matchups. So yeah, that's another interesting person who I think a lot of people don't even know is going.
Yeah. And finally, you cannot go without saying Chape from Chile. Chile's #1 player, who has projected right now to play Fizzwiggle.
This is like the start of his traveling journey for sure.
Yeah.
And it's our me and his paths will be very intertwined in this coming like month. He's coming to Minnesota. He's attending a lot of the Midwest regionals that I will be at, our locals, etc. So you definitely can look forward to me and him, are those paths being very intertwined, which will be interesting.
Just so you know, if you beat him, I won't talk to you anymore.
Dang, that is harsh.
He was another player who was like talking like I was like just would for sure lose to him. So I definitely want to play him.
Well, he's the great. Well, the good news is he's the greatest player on planet Earth, and I stand behind whatever assessment he has. He's the best. He's perfect. I love Chape.
He will be Fizzwiggle. He will be HUNGRYBOX. He will win the event. Easy.
I feel like Smash World Tour wasn't a big enough like indicator of where he stands, so he needs more data, and it's interesting that we'll finally get that. So
I think for him especially, like I mean, just thinking of it from his perspective, not just as someone who personally talks to him. I think for him, like this is an era where we're seeing people come from isolated regions, right? We're seeing them come here, get their licks, like get big wins, but sometimes get setbacks also because they're going to a completely different.
Yeah, for me, he got the big Spark win, but Spark looked like he was very, in a sense, jet lagged with Melee, coming back from Pakistan, being his first like major back, losing every set he played in the pools. So I don't know. Both players, honestly, that set doesn't really give indication for either player. So definitely looking forward to seeing how Chape does for sure.
I think, yeah, I think if I can just gas my boy up a little bit, one thing I will say, just like all jokes aside, I think for him to see someone like Josh Man come to the country twice and to like succeed in such incrementally impressive fashion, even with whatever setbacks that he had, I think that was a really big. I think where Chape is within the field right now, it could be like it'll be like Josh's first trip to America. That's how I think he wants it to be, right? Like I think he's seen what Josh's second trip to America, at least since the pandemic. It would probably be like his third trip to America in total, or
Third or fourth, yeah.
third or fourth, or whatever. But like I think for him, like this is his opportunity to get to play people like Ben and to get to play people outside of his region. So
Yep.
I'm really excited to see how he does. I'm proud of sponsoring him, and I'm just like super thrilled to see him this weekend and everything. But
Yeah, I'm happy for him too. It'll be a good chance.
I think this weekend will be great. We do have some questions that I want to get to though. And unfortunately, a lot of them were terrible. Usually I try not to, like in recent times, our patrons have come up with good questions. It's been very tough to make fun of them or to tell them how awful they were at, using the time that they had to write out terrible questions. But I have to say, like this week, Ben, whatever it was, it just drew out the total dog shit from our patrons. Just
unfortunate.
like, total trash quality questions. But among the massive trash heap of just complete utter filth, I was able to drag out 2 good questions. All right.
I hate this bit.
Not a bit. I'm serious.
It is. Oh my god. Never mind. Just ask the question. Ask your question, Edward.
The first one is from SSB Seal, the legend, someone known for being allergic to bad questions himself. So Seal is asking to Ben, do you have any pre-pandemic local or regional stories that you'd like to share? I think a lot of people know you like because of your rise to prominence during the pandemic, and they're more familiar with you now. So I'd be interested in your answers for
Seal probably knows of these, but honestly, there's not actually a lot of data to go off of before the pandemic as far as regionals and majors, but there are a few funny stories. My second major was Smash and Splash 4, where I had to play Absent Page, the number 1 in my region. Got put in the same pool with him. Don't know why. I think it was they just didn't seed me properly or something. It was probably down like 0-20, 30 at that point. Like never even like take games off of him, and I miraculously threw him off the stage last stock in both of the games and 2-0'd him to get a chance at Winners Top 64 at like one of my first majors. And it was just funny that happened. And then I threw tremendously hard to Cobb, the Peach player. And then had to get double jeopardied by Absent Page. Just got brutalized in the loser set. That was one of my major experiences, was getting to play Absent Page twice. It was a really awesome major. That's just what you want when you live in the Midwest and can't travel, is to go to a tournament and play the person near local. It was fun though.
What's very funny is that like this is basically like your demon at the this is your local demon that you beat.
This is like not just my demon. This was like
the whole state.
It was a big demon at the time, like for anyone in the Midwest. So it was definitely funny. I think literally the only majors I went to before the pandemic was Smash and Splash 3, Smash and Splash 4 and 5, because they were right in my backyard, and Invincible, the Wisconsin regional. Honestly, like nothing eventful happened in singles there, but the Minnesota versus Wisconsin crew battles were always really, really fun with funny endings and stuff. I remember clutching for Minnesota with Lord English missing a rest on the last stock.
The other night's crew battle is insane.
Yeah, definitely one of my favorite like regional memories too. But no, the pandemic changed my life with Slippy. With Slippy more changed everything. It was a perfect mix of circumstance and opportunity that spawned my ability to like actually play the game like as much as I wanted to, And it's just weird. There really wasn't much data before that. So yeah, I don't even have too much to say. Those are probably my two favorite, like, most notable memories pre-pandemic.
Cool. So I guess for our second and final question, this one is from Zadrio. Zadrio is asking to you, Ben, if you could take any trait from a top player game-wise, or even outside of the game, who would it be, and what trait would you take?
I think it would have to come down to either Jmook or Zane, certain traits that they have. I think Zane has a mental trait, or like his mental proficiency when it comes to competing and improving and playing the game is unmatched with any player. He's just like has such a good head on his shoulders. He's so calm. He just like really understands like how to maximize his like grinding and improve the most with his time. Whereas Jmook has the other trait, which is more gameplay wise, where I think he literally is the best player at just looking at the screen and like making proper decisions. Whereas like I get attributed a lot with like being fast and like having really burst movement, like just like sporadic, like throwing at moves and like just being really quick and like sometimes hard to catch. But like I really want to be a player that more so like Jmook is just like making correct decisions, making it really hard to open you up, and just like being that top player. That is my goal going forward, is to kind of erase all of the pointless, like mindless stuff that I currently do, and like fill it in with like actual intellectual decisions. And like, because I think that's part of what makes Jmook so fun to watch, is that everything he does is just so purposeful, and it looks so like amazing on the screen with Sheik. It just looks so fluid. So I think those would be the top two most useful traits to pick up from any player. And I think I would have to go with Jmook's. I think he just has such a knack for the game. He's just a natural on the same level that like Mango, your Plup, your Leffen, like that just like don't need to put in the same amount of hours, because they just like understand so well what's happening on the screen and just make such good decisions.
Yeah, it totally makes sense. Those two were the only questions that I wanted to ask you on the show.
No,
But
it's okay. They were fun.
yeah, but like typically when when we're a little short on good questions, there's a third one that we resort to that I think I think as we would put it, it tells a lot about someone, right? And I guess that the third question is, what's your favorite pizza topping?
Hanging out with Dark Gen X and his crew and New Jersey people all of GOML weekend, they all go to just like crazy exotic places with just like tons of food, and I'm just like so used to just eating the most like basic like American food. I'm just like it's hard for me to get out of my comfort zone, so I'm like literally just like sausage. um, but I had such a good time with the GOML crew and the people I hung out with this weekend. Really got me to like try new things, and some of it was good, some of it wasn't as good. But favorite pizza toppings, like probably just sausage or cheese.
SF, what do you think of sausage and cheese?
I love cheese.
Can't go wrong.
Yeah, right. It's just
well, you get, and you're gonna enjoy it. Like
yeah,
you might not be trying something new, but you're like, wow, I'm hungry and I'm gonna enjoy this. That's my mindset.
Yeah, 100%. I go with Old Reliable every single time.
Every time. Wow.
Every
too.
time.
I'm the guy that finds one thing that they like at a restaurant, never breaks from that ever.
Yeah. No, yeah. Agreed. Actually.
I think cheese is. It's just like I think like there's a tendency to sometimes overthink this, right? Like sometimes you try putting on a bunch of toppings, or you try a new flavor that looks good at a restaurant, but then you have it, or you're not, when you're eating pizza, it almost feels like you're not eating a pizza as much as you're eating just a bunch of vegetables with the pizza underneath.
Yeah, it's like, well, I just paid $25 for this thing that I like, kind of don't really like, and now I'm just sad.
Yeah.
Whereas now, when it's like, oh, I could get a sausage pizza, and like, that'd be a good pizza.
Sausage, nice. Yeah, I usually I think for me, I switch between Old Reliable and just having
A
mushroom,
balance is better for sure. You got to try new stuff sometimes.
mushrooms, green
Yeah,
pepper.
you don't.
You don't have to, but you probably should.
We got a cheese truther here. Okay, so Ben, we're heading out to the to around the end of the show, and this is typically the part, as you're familiar with, in which we kind of like to remind the viewers that we're human beings outside Melee, that we have other interests, other activities that we do. So we just kind of talk about like what we've been up to outside the game, right? This segment doesn't officially have a name, but to a lot of loyal fans, it's known as Unplugged, where we talk about like all the things that we're up to in our life, outside the house, outside our computer screen, outside TV. No, that's not really true. I talk about TV and movies all all the time here, but you get the point. So I guess I'll start off. So like on Monday, I was at an Independence Day, celebration outside cookout with the rest of my family. We stayed at my parents for a little bit, and I brought my spouse and my dog with me. My parents have a big yard, and I gotta say, like, there's something when we've been raising our dog in the city in Boston for a bit. We're actually moving out of Boston in a couple weeks, but we don't get to often see a certain side of my dog Arnold, right? So it's like when we see him, he's usually inside, kind of relaxing, lying down. He's not super duper energetic, but when he is, it's usually in bursts. When we take him outside, he's very focused on the city around him, right? Like he gets distracted very easily. And I gotta say, there's something about the kind of like pure happiness and joy that you see in a dog when it's like outside in a big yard, like an enclosed, obviously safe, but like enclosed yard, where he's just like running around, just so happy, like panting a lot because obviously there's water nearby and everything, but like he's panting, he's happy, he's like lying on the ground, he's like twirling his little like stomach, like flipping, lying on his back, like biting at the grass, but like he's super happy, just like a pure level of joy from my dog that I rarely get to see. He's happy a lot of other times, but like there's things in the day that he loves, but like never, it just hits very different when you see pure joy in another like living being like that. And it was just very I thought about it a lot after yesterday. It was nice seeing my family as well, but like the image that's always gonna stick with me is just like my dog running about, just like like it's almost like going outside in the July 4th heat or whatever. It just like unlocked, and it's like I saw a new side of him, and like I pressed a button, and it's like instinctual response to being outside, and it's just I saw a whole new version of my dog, and it's one it just like it made me so happy seeing it, and it's the kind of thing I wanted to share with the audience. So
no, that's great.
To
just the little moments too. It's so important to just like separate, just like appreciate the moments with like people in your life, and dogs are great.
Yeah,
it's hard not to love dogs.
SF, what have you been up to?
On, I think it was Friday, I finished JoJo's Bizarre Adventure Part 4, Diamond is Unbreakable, a show that I am simply watching in order to engage with the other people at Verdugo who have watched it, like Fiction and Pipe and many SoCal people. And it's so good. It's such a good series. I loved it so much.
Nice. I'm currently on Attack on Titan, so I feel that.
Yeah, it's just like, I love the art and I love everything's happening, and it makes me feel so good inside. It's just all like, it's just like a so fun to watch, and like so many just little like not twists per se, but just like oh my god moments of just like that is so smart, or oh that's so awful, or just it's such a blast to watch, and it really it's just very fun. I had a very fun time. I definitely I think binged through like the last third of the season like in about a day or two. just because I couldn't get over it, and I love talking to people at Verdugo about it. It's like, oh, it was so great. I can't wait to watch more. And now I'm already on part 5 and loving it. So very glad on keeping to watch that. And then I'll start One Piece eventually when I finish with JoJo's.
Isn't
So
that
that's
like crazy long?
yeah, it's like 1,000-ish
Yeah.
episodes and like manga and yeah, but I have to be able to engage with my fellow SoCal people in order to really.
Yeah, I mean, it's nice to just like be able to like be in the loop of like what your friends are talking about and
This is
stuff.
all crazy, SF. I'm asking you what you're doing outside of Melee.
He's watching anime. He's on the
I
dime.
gotta do what I'm doing, like touching grass wise, like.
I don't know what you're talking about with that touching grass nonsense. I've never heard that term before. Yeah, I'm just very surprised. You know, it's It's not that I'm surprised. It's just very funny that your example of something you've been doing outside of Melee is for the purpose of interacting with other Melee people.
I mean, it's really enjoyable to watch. It's just very funny to also, then talk to my friends who have played Melee as well and be engaging with them about it. There was actually something really funny that happened at Verdugo like 2 weeks ago, where I was talking with Fiction and Kevon, Pipe the TO, and Noel walks up to us and they're like, I think Kevon's like, oh, you can't talk to us about One Piece yet because you haven't read, your. And Noel's like, no, I can't. I was like, oh, you've also not watched One Piece, Noel. And he's like, no, I'm just like a few chapters behind, so I can't really talk with him about it. And I was like, oh, my bad. I'm just the one who's ignorant about this. You're also about thousands of chapters into it. That's my bad.
Yeah.
Yeah, so just very fun to engage with.
No, yeah. I'm also on that that vibe where like shows. It's just so important to have like something that gets you excited outside of like whatever the one main thing is. Like for me, it's Melee. I think for a lot of us, it's Melee.
Yeah.
But having something else that gets you excited, just like socially or like, like different shows, like just like, you just get lost in a different world. It's nice at night, like kill time and stuff.
Yeah.
I'm living the busy IRL life. Like I just don't have enough time for like everything I would like to do. Like I have a lot of different games I wish I could play, but just don't have like the time or like feel the need to play them. Full-time job plus full-time student. Currently in summer courses too, so like pretty busy with that. But it's been good. I managed to get a job in IT pretty early, which was huge, big score for me, and I've been working my way up in that. So that's been good. Get some money for all the needs and wants, and yeah, just working my way through school. It's hard. It keeps me grounded and away from like the Melee drama, which is good.
Yeah.
Because when I start to get involved in Melee drama, that's when like my mood and everything just like plummets. So everything that keeps me away from that and focused on purely the game and purely competing that's good. That's always a win.
Yeah, it's not great when you log on to Twitter and you see like I think one of the low points was taunting discourse, and if playing,
yeah, that's when it's just time to close Twitter.
Yeah, it's how you know when it's time to close Twitter and when it's time to go outside. So Ben, I guess we're kind of at the end of the show now, but in case the listeners and the watchers of the show want to know where to follow you, where can they do so?
Currently only Twitter. Don't really have any ambition or like plans to ever start up Twitch again. So we'll leave it at Twitter for now. I think it's linked right under my name. So at Ben_SSBM. Free agent as well. So definitely looking to get sponsored. That's another big goal. But trying to grow my Twitter for that purpose.
I thought you talked about how you weren't on Twitter anymore.
I mean, I'm on Twitter, but I'm trying to be less active.
God.
Or like less involved. Like I said, less involved with like less drama, widespread discussion, anything. Just like focus on like my goals. Like that kind of stuff just like doesn't matter at the end of the day. It doesn't ever like do any good. So like let everybody else sort that stuff out, and I'm just gonna like focus on me.
Yeah, I definitely I would be very surprised if I saw Ben in a critical video. I'll say that. I don't want to see the moment gamers must see version 2.0 or whatever.
Don't want to be in anything like that.
No, please don't.
I did not get the sense that you'd want to do that. Anyways, if you loved tonight's episode, you can check out the VOD on our YouTube under the Melee Stats archive channel. Or if you get a chance, you can see our long-form videos over on the main channel, Melee Stats. If you want more of us, you can follow Melee Stats over on Twitter at Melee Stats Pod. That's where we do our Last Night in Melee series, which covers daily tournament results from the night before. It's thanks to this guy over here, SF, who does it. You can also check out our website, Melee Stats Co., where we publish weekly series like Monday Morning Marth, written by myself, and When's Melee, also written by SF. And finally, and most importantly, if you truly love our work and you want to throw us a few bucks, please, with no hesitation, go over to patreon.com/meleestats, where your support for us will really make a big difference and help us continue to contribute to the scene in all the ways that we can. I think that was pretty good. That was solid.
Yeah.
It was a good close, right?
Is it over?
Good job.
Well, we're still live, but that's the way that
Surprised you didn't mention that when someone could also be a patron if they do a bet with you.
Yeah, that too. You can gamble with me, but I might be a little lost in the sauce this weekend to gamble rationally. I'm really excited for this upcoming weekend. I think we got a bunch of great Melee ahead of us. I'm really excited to see both of you at this event.
Yeah,
Ben,
me too.
thanks for coming on a lot. It was really fun talking to you, kind of picking your brain about the game and about the.
Yeah, no, I always wanted to come on. I was just kind of waiting for it. And I was glad to come on at such a pivotal moment in the Melee scene.
Yeah. SF, thanks for coming on. Also, it's really great talking about Melee with you all the time.
It's been my pleasure. I love talking about Melee. So.
Yeah. And to the audience, to the viewers, to the listeners, we'll be back next week. Thank you so much for tuning in. Wheat's going to be back. I'm sure he'll have a lot to say about Double Down and what that means.
He'll have GOML, Double Down, everything, the rankings. Like, he'll have a lot to say for sure.
Yeah. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Peace.
Peace.